have low tolerance for certain things. This right here has saved my life.
Amen.
God putting people in my life is the only reason I'm standing here tonight. I retired after 24 years serving in the U.S. Air Force as a master sergeant. I was 14 years as a heavy equipment operator, and then I got force cross trained into what they call logistics plans. We're called loggies. Heavy equipment operators were known as dirt boys, because we're down and dirty in the dirt. That's what we do. I've deployed all over the world, to include 4 trips to the Southwest Asia theater, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. Seen a lot of things there. Did a lot of things I didn't want to do there. I also did a tour in Bosnia in the 90s, and I did a year in Afghanistan. Also did several humanitarian trips in the mid-90s, went down to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, to build refugee camps for all the Cubans and Haitians that were fleeing their country because of the political stances going on down there. Humanitarian is right, because that was the people we were getting. They were so anxious to get out of there. They were making homemade needles from the MREs that we were feeding them, filling them with gasoline and injecting gasoline in their legs so they'd come to America, because the word spread that if we're sick, we get to go to America. Because they knew if they went back to Cuba, they were going to be assassinated when they got off the plane. And again, I'm standing here tonight because God's grace, and He has a plan for me. And I think that now that my life is straightened out, my plan is right here, spreading His word, working with you all here as our army. We're an army. I've got some great ideas that I'll be bringing up at the meeting coming up, and I'm looking forward to what God has in store for us. I talked to the pastor back last year before Thanksgiving and told him I was working on a message for the men's breakfast. And of course, he likes to take it one step further. How about a Wednesday night service? I said, well, I can do a testimony, or I can do this. So I do have a plan. I was tossing around. I prayed, and God led me to do my testimony tonight, not my other lesson. So here I am. As new members, I feel it's important that y'all understand where we came from, where we're going, what I've done. And I want to thank you all for being here tonight to hear this. I'm going to talk to you about my walks with God, my time away from God, my conversations and broken promises to God. So what you're going to be hearing tonight is straight from Him. He laid this on my heart, and this is what you're going to be hearing. And I apologize, I thought I had this, but I'm glad I did have my notes here, because I don't think I could remember it all alone. Young people, you boys are amazing, and I'm going to be talking to you a lot, straight to you tonight. I don't want you to make the mistakes that I made. And I'm going to back every mistake that I made up with Scripture, so you're going to know it's the truth. And I passed out those, or hopefully y'all got a copy of those verses. I made it easy because they're kind of scattered. I didn't want y'all to have to flip through the Bible. But I'll tell you, young folks, if you put them where you can read them every day, when you get up in the morning, you're going to know that God's with you. He's got a plan for you. He's going to protect you. And all you got to do is do what He asked you to do. I wish I'd have done that. My life would have been a lot easier. So, I grew up in a Christian home. Dad, he was the second oldest of 7 kids, born in New Bern. our mom, she was, I don't remember, she was the youngest or the second youngest, but, she was one of 9 born of a sharecropper family in Farmville, North Carolina. And, they got married, and a couple of years after they got married, they decided they wanted a child. They had a little boy. Mom always wanted a little boy. Unfortunately, he only made it 3 days when he went to be with the Lord. So they prayed, Mom prayed, and she finally had my oldest sister Gloria sitting down there. Then about a year and a week later, my sister Nita was born. And Mom, I remember Mom used to tell me when I was a little boy, she wanted a little boy. She prayed and she prayed and she prayed that the Lord would bring her a son. But as a Christian woman, she knew things weren't in her time, it was in God's time. Everything is in God's time. And I know that because she wanted me to be a preacher, and I feel like I failed her, but I know that her, my dad, they're holding their oldest son up there, smiling down on me tonight. And that's what keeps me going, and that's what got me up here tonight. Matthew 21:22, that's on there. It tells us, and whatever things you ask in prayer, believing you will receive. Mark 11:24. He tells us, therefore I say to you, whatever things you ask when you pray, believe you have received them, and you will have them. Mom told me she never stopped praying. 11 years after Anita was born, I was born. And that was done for a specific reason. And I'll get into that a little later. So 11 years later, on Christmas Eve at 2:10, she had this big old 10-pound, 2-ounce bouncing baby boy. Her prayers were answered. And I'm saying my mom was a Christian woman, and she knew that everything was in God's time. God told her in Ecclesiastes 3, chapter 3, 1 and 2 and 11. To everything there is a season, a time and a purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted. Verse 11, he has made everything beautiful in its time. And I think I'm pretty beautiful, but also he has put eternity in their hearts, except that no one can find out the work that God does from beginning to end. And I'm gonna mess this up, Brother Darrell, so you correct if I say it wrong. In Habakkuk, he questioned God in chapter 1. Lord, how long shall I cry out to you, violence, and you will not save? Well, God answers him in chapter 5. Look among the nations and watch, be utterly astounded, for I will work in your days, which you would not believe. And people, he's worked in my life like I can't believe. And I hope he's worked in your life that you can't believe as well. Young men, he's going to work in your lives like you ain't going to believe it. In chapter 2, verse 3, God also tells him, for the vision is yet for an appointed time. That means God has the plan. He knew my plan. I didn't know it, but he knew it. And unfortunately, I just didn't always give God the time. I was impatient. I didn't wait for his plan to come around. I just did what I wanted to do. Why? Because I'm in the Air Force. I'm a big bad man. I got to go. Things got to happen on my time. But yeah, for the vision is yet to be appointed at that time, but it will, in the end, it will speak. It will not lie. Though it tarries, wait for it, because it will not tarry. And God's telling us we may think it's tarrying, but it's not tarrying because it's God's time, not our time. It is God's time. This is good for all of us. We each have our own battles. I know we do. So just remember these verses, and that's why I printed these verses. I think they're good for all of us to just take a look at, take a gander at once in a while. If it's on your refrigerator, you can look at it. I gotta remember, everything's in God's time, not mine. Even though we want them answers, solutions, healings, or whatever we're seeking, we want it right away, but we gotta keep in mind it's God's time. So there I was, this little baby linebacker, and by the way, if y'all talk to my sisters and they say my parents spoiled me,
It's
they're
true.
lying. They spoiled me.
Well, they did. And
Except
still
maybe this
do.
one Christmas when I got the shotgun that I really wanted, and they hid it from me till the end of Christmas Day. We grew up in Tabernacle Baptist Church there in Newbern. It's a church that my grandma went to. She took my aunts and uncles, my dad's side, the Cahoons. And so we had a Christian family. We grew up in a Christian home, Christian family, and a Christian church. The youth group there was amazing. My sisters went through it. 11 years later, I went up through it, and life was great. We were all living for God, and it was awesome. When I was in the second grade, my dad, at the age of 42, I was 7, 8 years old, had his first heart attack. He was 42 years old. I was a little guy. My mentor, my fishing buddy, is in the hospital. I don't know if he's coming out or not. And this is where I say it's God's plan. I stayed with my two sisters while my dad was up at Wake Memorial. If it hadn't been for them, I'd have had to been with somebody else that I probably didn't really know. So they took care of me, and I thank y'all for that. And I bounced between the two of them, pending work schedules and things like that. So God provided me a little later so they could take care of me. And he was in his ER with the first of many heart attacks. I was just a little 8-year-old boy that looked up to my daddy, and I was scared. I ain't afraid to admit it. I was scared. But he did good. He went through the surgery, and a funny story about that, he was up there in the recovery room, and when he woke up, there was a lady and a little girl standing there holding his hand, saying, "We love you, Daddy." He didn't look like him. Nobody does coming out of an open heart surgery. But this lady thought, and this little girl thought that my dad was their husband and daddy. And they were just standing there saying, "We love you, Daddy." And he couldn't do nothing. He had all these tubes in him, so he was just laying there. So through everything, you gotta find humor. I try to find humor in everything. But, and I did. I cried and prayed the whole time. But, there I was at the ripe old age of about 10. I started talking to my mom about, I want to go to heaven. We'll go to heaven, Mom, because she had us in church every time the doors were open. She was trying to mold and make us into being good Christians, make me a good Christian man. And so we went on a couple of weeks, and she talked to me. And then before church, or after church one day, I can't remember which, we talked to Pastor Johnson. I love that pastor. He was a great man, good, God-fearing man, and he loved the Lord. And he talked to me. And it was a few weeks later, after the sermon, Mom walked me down that aisle, and I prayed that prayer with him. I want to go to heaven. And after I gave my life to the Lord that night, every Sunday evening during training union at our church there, I met with him for almost 2 months. We did 45-minute study in his office, me and him. He wanted to know that I knew what it meant to be a Christian. He wanted to know that I knew what it meant to serve God. He wanted to know that I knew how to act as a Christian. He wanted to know that I was ready to serve God before I got baptized. And so I did. I was ready, and I got baptized. And the youth group there at church, we Wednesday nights at our group, we would go visit rest homes as youth. We would go in and we were a large crowd. There's probably 30 of us. And we would break off in little groups and we would just go down the halls. We would walk in rooms whether we knew them or not, and we would sit there and talk with them a little bit and then pray with them. And it was amazing at the blessings that we got from that. It was amazing at the blessings they got, seeing their face light up, to have these young kids walk in there and pray with them and just talk to them, because they don't get many visitors. They didn't, because it was just one of them places where you kind of go and you're left to die when nobody wants you, unfortunately. But I played on the church baseball team. We represented God on the field in our church. We had a youth choir. Again, there was probably 30, 40 of us in there. We would practice all year. We'd do a Christmas cantata. We would do all these things that was really amazing. The whole church family, like I said earlier, they were prepping us, molding us to be good Christian young people, to get out there and spread His word, because they knew as what we were going to encounter when we left home to go to school, go to the military. They knew what a cruel world it was. Of course, I don't believe it was as cruel back then as it is now. But they knew, and they were doing everything in their power to teach us how to be Christian young people. So eventually I was baptized, and I felt God in me. When you accept Christ in your heart, and y'all know this, you're a different person. I was happy. I was telling everybody at school. I was just excited. But I'm gonna tell you what else, young people. I didn't believe there was a devil until I got saved. Because once I gave my life to the Lord, that devil, he started working on me. Because before I was saved, he knew I was just gonna spend my time with him. But once you accept Christ, and you're going to heaven, you're doing His work, that devil's gonna work on you. He's gonna work on you hard. And I know I'm gonna be turning into another Brother Connie. Me and him's gonna be your second and third dads here at the church, prepping you and molding you, molding you to be Christian young men, so that you don't get caught into these traps that the evil world is going to throw at you. And I can say, we'll back Brother Darrell up on this, I'm so proud of y'all. Y'all have great mentorship at home. You have great mentorship here at this church. And I'm honored to be a part of that now. And Miss Tabby is as well. And we're gonna do our best to get involved more and be a part of y'all's lives. I'm kind of paraphrasing everything, so I gotta just look through my notes here. So growing up, I was a huge hunting, fishing, more so fishing than hunting. Well, Mom told me, sorry you ain't fishing on Sundays. Sundays you go to church. I said, come on, Mom, it ain't gonna hurt me to miss one Sunday. Nope. Mom molded me that nothing comes before God. Nothing comes before God at all. And I appreciated it at the time, but man, it was hard knowing that Dad was going fishing, because he still worked at the time, and I wanted to go fishing. Well, this just so happens, this one Sunday, I always wanted to go to Ocracoke, or Portsmouth Island, and fish with Dad. That was my one thing. I'd never been there. I wanted to go get on that gray trout run I used to have back then. So finally, one Sunday, Mom finally gave in. I was in the 5th grade. So we roll out of Newbern at like 4 o'clock, cause we had to put in at Cedar Island. We get on over there with some buddies of ours. Fishing wasn't that great that day, and it started getting rough, so the other guys left. Well, me and my dad and our buddy that was with us, we said, we're gonna stay and try to catch a few more. Well, it started getting rough. So we decided we'd head in, and going against the waves, you're gonna burn a lot more fuel. And these were like 3 to 4 foot seas, because that Pamlico Sound gets pretty rough. I know Mr. James knows that.
Yeah.
And so we were coming in, and my dad hit the buoy. He thought he hit the buoy he needed to set his compass to get us to Cedar Island, but it was the buoy before, but we'd been going so long, going slow, it was the wrong buoy, so we ended up out on the sandbars there in Pamlico Sound. So our big friend, we called him the Pollock, that was his nickname, that's what everybody in town called him. We tied a rope around him, threw him on the sandbar, and he horsed us over to a little place, I know Mr. James knows, called Shell Castle out there. And there was a little channel in between the islands, and we went in there. And we stayed there all night long. And it's a Sunday, 9 o'clock, there was no cell phones back then, and Mom was getting worried, not so much about Dad, but about her little boy. And of course, so called the Coast Guard and everything. Long story short, we stayed there all night. Coast Guard finally found us like 2 in the morning. I think they got us back to the Coast Guard station at 3 and 4 in the morning. And we were just gonna refuel with gas and run on in, but nope, Mom wasn't having it. She called a friend, gave him a set of keys. He drove to Cedar Island, got Dad's truck and trailer, put it on the ferry, rode it over. We had to load the boat up over there and take the ferry back. But the point of that is, when you don't put God first, bad things happen. Bad things can happen when you don't put God first. You hear that, Gunner? Don't be going fishing on Sundays, buddy. Wait till after church. But, and needless to say, I did not go fishing on Sundays and miss church anymore after that. I put God first, because that's what Mom wanted me to do. And there was a bunch of phone calls that night that just worried Mom as well. The Coast Guard, they called her one time and said, well, we found a boat with 2 men and a boy, but it wasn't them. So that upset her. Then I think the next phone call was, well, we found a boat matching that description, but nobody was in it. Now, why they would do that, I don't know. But anyway, they got to us and everything was fine. So I remember as a freshman in high school, at the Tabernacle there, we, Monday nights, we had a youth meeting. And it was also the opening day of deer season, and none of my friends went to school that day. We were going hunting. And I killed my first deer that day in the freshman year in the 9th grade. Well, by the time, I was so ecstatic, by the time we were done riding around and showing it off, and we got ready to go clean it, Mom said, where are you going? I said, we're going to clean deer. No, you're not. Your daddy can go clean it with your brother-in-laws, and you're going to church, to the youth meeting. Again, Mom had to keep pounding that into me. God comes first. God comes first. And I'm glad I did. It was a great night at the youth meeting that night. But my mom, I'll tell you, she was hard on us, but she was a Christian woman. She loved the Lord. I pulled out her Bible a month or so ago, and you would not believe the notes and the writing that she put in that Bible. And I'm going to be using that Bible to come up with more devotions, more talks and everything like that, because wow, it was just amazing that what I read in there. So also growing up, you know, hunting and fishing, I wanted to get into the fishing and wildlife management. So I went to my senior year. I went to Goldsboro there and enrolled in the Fish and Wildlife Management program there at Wayne Community College. As the senior year went on, I got bit by the love bug. I want to get married to my high school sweetie. So I'm trying to figure out how I can do this, how I can not have mom and dad pay for my schooling. Hell, I don't have to pay for my schooling, because really my grades weren't good enough to, because I was too busy hunting and fishing, and that's all I focused on. So, it was around, about 3 weeks before graduation, I went and started talking to recruiters, because I wanted to get married. You hear that, boys? I wanted to get married. Guess what I didn't do? I ain't prayed about it. I did not pray about if I should get married or not. I just did it, because that's what I wanted. Wasn't what God wanted, it was what I wanted. So, never told mom and dad I went to the recruiters, and I finally got everything settled, and the Air Force got me a guaranteed job as a heavy equipment operator, Dirt Boys. And they got me a leaving for basic training date of March 29th, 1992. So I was in delayed enlistments for 8 months. So I went home that night for supper. We were sitting around the table after we prayed. I looked at mom and dad and said, guess what I did today? And they said, no telling about you, son. Oh, well, I went and joined the Air Force. I'm leaving March 29th. You talking about 2 jaws hitting the table. They said, do what? I said, yep, I'm joining the Air Force. Well, there was a lot of questions. I never told them it was because I wanted to get married. I never told them that. But, so there I go. I go off to basic training in March of '92. And basic, everybody says basic, Air Force basic is a joke. Well, to the Marines, yes, it is. But I see you back there. But I'll tell you what, it was still tough. You're still away from home. And, you know, because I like to talk, tell me I didn't get in trouble as soon as I got off the bus for talking. So I made myself known right away. So I had this big muscle-bound TI. I mean, he had like 2% body fat, just ripped. So he was in my face pretty much the whole time. I ain't gonna lie about that. But we finally got some downtime in our barracks there before lights out, about 2 or 3 weeks in. And I pulled out my Bible and started reading it. And one of my buddies in there, he came over and said, what you reading? So I'm reading like this, and this is how it went. I said, the Bible. He said, oh, that's a great book. I said, oh, you're saved, you're a Christian? He said, no, I'm an atheist, but it's still a good book. It's got good stories in it. Everything my mom prepared me for went out the door. I had nothing. I had never, yeah, New Bern's big now, y'all, but back in the day where I hung out and everything, it was small. And I'd never encountered anything like that before, and I had nothing to say. Honestly, it left me speechless. And I say that because, young men, when the opportunity arises, be prepared. Don't let it shock you that somebody's not going to believe. It's our job to give them the message, and it's God's job to take it from there and work on their heart. And I wish I'd have done that. And so when they called lights out, I was in my bunk there and I prayed about that, because I was ashamed, I was embarrassed that I had nothing for this guy. And I do remember that was 1992, y'all, that was a few years ago. And I don't really remember the conversation, but I know we had Sunday afternoon, we had Liberty, and we'd go hang out at the bowling alley. And I did talk to him a little bit about it, and I can't remember how the conversation went, because I'm getting old now. But we did have a little conversation. I don't think it changed his mind, but I just felt I had to tell him something. So from there, went on to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, known as Fort Lost in the Woods, for our heavy equipment training, where we trained with the Navy and the Marines and the Army. You know, we were there, I went to the chapel on base, and that was about all the time we had for there. But I prayed at the chow hall. I always said my prayers before we ate, and I said it when I went to bed. And God got me through that. As tough as it was, He got me through it. So I joined the Air Force to see the world. Had all overseas on my dream sheet, all Florida bases. They sent me right back to Goldsboro. I could not believe it. My family was excited. Mom and Dad was ecstatic. So I got in there and I started, started doing my training, started working, having a great time. And after being in about a year, I finally married my high school sweetheart. We got married, and no, it wasn't Tabby, unfortunately. Because, well, she graduated and I was still in middle school. But
Stop it.
I like to tell everybody she robbed the cradle. But
I burp him every night.
But I didn't pray about that marriage. I didn't pray at all. Did we still go to church there in Goldsboro? Yeah, we went to the chapel on base and hit a few churches here and there in the town. But, we never prayed for that marriage. I don't think neither one of us did. It's important in a marriage that you pray for your marriage. God's the only one that can see us through the bad times. And it's not easy. Ask her, she'll tell you. Especially being married to me. But so we got married after the first year. So my second year, after our 1 year anniversary, I got tagged to go to my first deployment, Saudi Arabia, Khobar Towers. And that was in '94. And so I get over there, and talking an experience for a little country boy that's never been in the big city or much less outside the country. We started rolling up on our base there, and the loudspeakers started coming on with some Arabic. I was like, what is that? Oh, don't worry about it. Get used to it. It's prayer time. So all over the cities out there, they had these speakers. Wouldn't that be nice if we could do that here in Beaufort? Have some loudspeakers, so we just start praying at certain times, let everybody hear the message. Like, have to talk to the commissioners. But yeah, that was I'm gonna tell you, for a little country boy, that first deployment was an experience. They gave us a treat. Friday night was surf and turf night. They give us steak and lobster or steak and shrimp or something like that. Well, because we're dirt boys, we're engineers, and we like to get outside the box. We found out the Army base just down the road, they did their surf and turf on Wednesday night. So we loaded up our trucks. We was getting surf and turf 2 nights a week. So there was this one particular night, it was just 2 of us. And when you go to the Army base, you're going down these back, you can't even tell there's a road there hardly, because it's just flat desert. I mean, it's just flat desert. So we were heading back to base after eating, and I noticed this, I wasn't driving, I was watching. There's a little Toyota pickup truck that they drove over there, and all you could see was it and a big cloud of dust. I was like, hey bro, let's slow it down. We got traffic coming. And hit the road and started coming at us. So we're getting a little paranoid, and even though it was in Saudi, there were still bad guys in Saudi. And then he started swerving all over the road, and he went off the road and jumped a sand embankment, started barrel rolling. So we're like, whoa, we let the dust clear a little bit, and we got up there, we got out, we cleared the vehicle, make sure they didn't have any weapons or anything on. There was a guy hollering, the dust cleared some more. The truck was laying on the driver's side door. Well, the driver was halfway out the window and halfway in the door, so he was hollering because literally the truck was laying on him. We flipped the truck over, got him out of the truck over to the side. He started pointing. We couldn't see because of the dust. About 50 feet up the road, there was 2 more gentlemen. I guess they were riding in the bed of the truck, so we went up there. And this was my first time my second time that I remembered having to actually watch someone pass away. And I'm not gonna go into the graphics, but we weren't allowed to touch the locals over there. Whether it was life or death, we weren't allowed to touch them. So just to stand there, with being a Christian, it took its toll on me not being able to help. And I know I wanted to and I almost did, but I didn't. And I hope God forgives me for that. I've asked for it and I hope He will. But I had just turned 21 years old when I was there. So later on, because we were engineers, we were first in, last out. We got tagged to go to Kuwait. We had to forward deploy to Kuwait, Kuwait International Airport, where the Kuwaiti military was, Air Force. Our pararescue guys were up there, and they were sleeping in the buildings where Saddam Hussein had eliminated a lot of the Kuwaiti people. So you can imagine the smell, the sights in there. And our guys were living in that. So we went up there to set up trailers. We got a hold of some trailers from the Kuwaiti government. As equipment operator, we leveled the ground out there and we used our cranes to get the trailer set up. And then we jumped right in and helped the electricians, because our work was done. We helped electricians and all this. And we actually got to go downtown to the mall. And I tell you, I've never seen such grateful people toward us in all my life. Of course, what they had just went through, it was still fresh in their mind. All the Kuwaitis were just running up to us, thanking us. The little kids, they were hugging us. You talking about giving goosebumps and making your heart big. It was truly amazing what went on there. And of course, you know, at that time there was a Black Hawk Helo that was shot down by friendly fire in northern Iraq under Northern Watch. Well, they had offered us, this was just like 2 or 3 weeks later, and they offered us an incentive flight on their Black Hawk helicopters. And our first area, it was in cohesion like the choir. Are we gonna get shot down? And you know, what's the danger? I said, I mean, yeah, we're military, but I don't wanna go on a joyride if we're gonna be getting shot at. That's not much of a joyride. But no, we were safe and we did it, and I'll tell you, it's my heart goes out to Kuwait. They endured a lot during that time. So I get back to Seymour Johnson, and it was just 8 months after getting back, I got tagged again to go to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba in 95. We had, as soon as I got back from the desert, we had sent one team down to start on these refugee camps. And then we sent another team, and then by the time it rolled around a year later, it was my turn to go again, or 8 months later. And I'll tell you, if y'all don't know what your military does, or if you knew what they did, if this country knew what they did, they might act right. They might act a little better than what they're doing. Because I'll tell you, when we were down there, we were with the Army and the Marines and the Navy. And I'll tell you, the things we endured. My job, I was driving because I had it on my license, I drove a 5,000 gallon water truck. And our simple job, we worked every other day for about half till our route was done, because the chances of getting hepatitis over there they skyrocketed. We go in these camps, and me and my buddy that was on the water truck with me, we were with the cell plumbers who were actually cleaning out the johns. So we would go through first before them, make sure there was nothing that would clog the hose, because, not to be gross or anything, but you know, that's how you got hepatitis because these people, they didn't have trash cans, and they would throw their trash in there. When it clogged the hose, you had to backflush the hose to clear it out. And that's where most of our guys that caught hepatitis, and we did have some, that's where they would get it, because I'm a tough guy, they wouldn't wear their face mask and it would blow right back on them, and they would contract it through their eyes or sores or whatever. But there were some sights, you know, we would open it up, sometimes there'd be a naked man standing there, sometimes there'd be a naked woman standing there, and they were bathing. That's where they went to bathe, in these little porta potties. That's how these Cubans and Haitians would bathe. And it was sad. They had the little cheap $2 AFES flip-flops that there ain't nothing to them. Thank you, military folks. They go through a lot. I tell you. And I didn't mind it one bit. It was an eye-opening experience. And I forgot to read a verse. I'm gonna go back real quick to my buddy that said he was an atheist. Acts 1:8. Jesus says, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth." 1 Peter 3:15. "But in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, and always being prepared to give a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that it isn't you." I may have messed up there. "Yet do this with gentleness and respect." It's like I was saying earlier, be prepared to talk to someone that says they don't believe, or why should I believe? Be prepared. Memorize them verses. I'm trying to hurry. We're getting crunch time, but so anyway, while I was on that trip down there in Guantanamo Bay, got a phone call. Dad was in the hospital with his, I think, 4th heart attack. And so I was getting mad because the doctor wouldn't do a Red Cross message to get me home. He's gonna be fine. I'm like, seriously, dude, he's already had 3 heart attacks, 2 open heart surgeries. They couldn't even do an open heart surgery on the 3rd one because of the scar tissue, and it killed the top left portion of his heart. And this doctor wouldn't give me a Red Cross message. So I'm getting mad. I told you I had anger issues. Yeah, my anger came out a little bit with the doctor. And on top of that, I made a phone call and I got the message that I don't want to be married anymore. I can't handle this military life. Which is typical in the military, and I see that. Maybe if I'd have prayed and waited, things would have been different. But they weren't. But that's how it goes. And I finally got home, and Dad was okay. He was okay, but you know, you never know. We don't know what God's plan is. I didn't know when my dad was gonna take his last breath. But I'll tell you what, I like to call him a tough old geezer, because he had his first heart attack when he was 42. And that was in 1982, I believe, or 80. 1980, he had his first heart attack. He lived to 2010 with all that heart trouble. So when I got back, I tried to work things out. It wasn't gonna happen, so we got divorced. She wasn't having no more part of it. So I had a choice to make. Once again, did I pray about it? Nope. Didn't pray one bit. I said, guess what? I'm a free man now, I'm single. I'm gonna ride this Air Force train. So I marched right in there and put in for orders, and this was in, I think, October. I didn't get the orders I really wanted, but I got orders, and January of 1996, I headed off for Kunsan, Korea for 1 year. And if y'all don't care, I talked to the pastor earlier, and I'm gonna end it right there, cause that's a good place, and I'll pick up next Wednesday. We've already talked, and I'm gonna start back up next Wednesday. And we'll start at 6 o'clock, but before, and I'm gonna leave the closing for Brother Darrell, but I do wanna say this. There's one thing that I learned through my time, through the times that I was with God. I needed to be down here at this altar praying. And that's something y'all gonna see me doing a lot more, because I can't do it without God. And if I'm gonna be an example of these boys, I need to be down here at the altar on my knees praying that God gives me the daily strength to do His will and be the man that He needs me to be the husband that He needs me to be the little brother that He needs me to be. And I can only do it through His grace. And I thank y'all for being here, and I hope to see y'all here next week as well. Brother Darrell, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Chuck, for that, and we're looking forward to next Wednesday. Please, let us know about being here.